Hello, and welcome to the higher education side of how personalized learning can impact students in colleges and universities. This brief presentation will go over how personalized learning affects the adult learner and also look at some key research and different drivers to make sure that personalized learning can be implemented successfully in colleges and universities. So let's start off with personalized learning environments and the adult learners. If you've already been on our site, you've already noticed that personalized learning has a huge impact on K through 12 education, but they also can impact our adult learners as well. So, as a brief synopsis, we already know that personalized learning environments aim to address the individual learning needs of each student. Basically, when a student is aware of how they're learning, they become more confident to share their knowledge with others and to also want to learn. A key factor of personalized learning environments is to help students to improve their own aptitude by using drivers like their own personal motivation and learning styles to increase the need and want to learn. So let's look at how personalized learning environments can build relationships. By creating personalized learning environments in college classrooms, the educator and student have a more symbiotic relationship where they work together. They develop intellectual tools and strategies that will help the student acquire knowledge that will help them think productively based on their own individual learning styles. Now, when you have a moment, please make sure you go through and click on this wonderful video on how personalized learning environments are being used in higher education, as it definitely can give you some additional insight on how they can positively benefit any college or university classroom. So, a huge piece of personalized learning environments working is collaboration. Collaboration is definitely key to the success of any personalized learning environment plan, regardless of whether or not a student is in higher education setting or K through 12 setting. They're pretty new in terms of using them in higher education settings. However, all partners must be committed to successful partnership and developing a plan that works for that student. So the students' opinions have a huge merit on how these environments actually work and whether or not they're successful because they're based on how the student learns. The instructor and the student have to have a collaborative relationship where they use positive communication skills as well as effective communication skills to develop specific needs for growth. They're not punitive environments, but rather they're great replacements to the traditional higher education classroom. So I did a little bit of research prior to this in order to kind of understand how personalized learning environments can affect or impact administrators, faculty, and other staff in higher education environments. So in our preliminary research, I looked at a study of about 13 workers who included faculty, program chairs, associate directors, finance managers, admissions representatives, academic advisors, as well as financial aid advisors to kind of get their understanding of what they thought personalized learning environments actually were. A staggering 53.9% had no idea what a personalized learning environment was, but they did realize that students do not actually learn at the same pace. Actually, 61.6% of those that were surveyed realized that students do not. So how do we combat that? Personalized learning environments. They also learned more about personalized learning environments prior to taking the survey, and a staggering 92.3% of those who took the survey had support for implementing PLs within the higher education classrooms in their own either traditional or online college settings. It must also be noted that in terms of implementing technology with a personalized learning environment, there's a big mix on whether or not they feel that their schools are compliant and ready to handle the rigorous needs of having a personalized learning environment that requires technology. 23.1% say they don't agree that their school has the necessary tools and resources to handle it, while about 46.2% believe that their schools do, and 30.8% of those schools do agree that their schools are compliant and could handle a personalized learning environment within their classrooms. So now that we've had some of that research, let's take a look at how the student can drive the success of a personalized learning environment. Students have to understand their own emotional regulation affects their ability to learn. So if the student isn't into learning or doesn't believe in whatever they're learning, chances are the personalized learning environment may not be successful and may not work at all. They also must be open to share their emotional experiences from prior studies and even how their social environments can interact with them because they can affect how that student does learn. These past experiences are huge drivers in whether or not the student has their own self-efficacy to believe that they can handle the rigors of college work. However, if they're not sharing that information with their instructor, there's a good chance that they're not going to have the individualized plan that meets their specific needs. So, can it fail? We've already discussed how students drive the success, and clearly, if they're not invested, it could fail. But they're not always foolproof. Personalized learning environments can become hindered when there's a serious lack of tools, strategies, or not presenting the material in a way that actually appeals to that student. There's no way to understand what student needs in terms of their individual needs, then chances are the personalized learning environment may have never been created successfully. The student has to again be an active and willing participant to engage and interact with the information that's being presented. And the student and teacher must coexist together. Otherwise, the environment is jeopardized because they do not have the same vested interests in their education. There are some substantial long-term benefits to actually implementing a personalized learning environment in higher education classrooms. And the scope is limitless. The benefits include reducing dropout rates, increasing retention, having targeted or active tutoring, improving the content and course quality, and of course, having a better instructional design that's based on the students' needs. Students also can actually graduate more prepared than they were before. Of course, helping them to matriculate and actually graduate and setting the precedent to have better lives for themselves and their communities. So with all these great things that we've learned about personalized learning environments, we can't wait to be able to implement them on a more wider scale in colleges and universities. Thanks for taking the time out today to listen to our presentation, and we hope you've enjoyed our group's WPP project on how personalized learning can be implemented strategically and successfully in K-12 and higher education classes.